Hi, and welcome to this Platinum sponsor session. We have two sponsor presentations during this session. It's Microsoft and Inspira. But first is Microsoft's partner, Checkpoint, by Nils Ove Gamlem. Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Nils Ove.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for the introduction. And thanks for the invitation to speak to you for the next 15 minutes or so. As mentioned, Checkpoint is a partner of Microsoft on cybersecurity. And my plan today for the next minutes is to give you an introduction of how to secure the cloud. But just first, not sure if everyone of you knows Checkpoint. We are a global company funded 26 years ago in Tel Aviv, actually, where most of the cybersecurity companies actually came from. We are 5,500 employees globally, approximately 2,000 in US, 2,000 in Europe, and the rest in Asia, Africa, and so on. Our goal is to secure our IT infrastructure, both the mobile phones, the agent on PCs, Macs, Linux stuff, the network, cloud, and not to forget IoT devices, which is a huge market coming up for all of us. That's me, and that's the company I represent. Cybersecurity, or more in depth, actually cloud computing security, consists of a set of controls, policies, procedures, and technologies that are supposed to work together to protect cloud-based systems. In this presentation, at least, that's the focus. Not just the systems, but also the data and the infrastructure. And as you know, of course, because I believe most of you are either private or through your employer users of cloud services. So Gartner is telling that 96% of all companies, all organizations worldwide, have actually started to use some kind of cloud services. But cloud as a terminology has moved from actually being a solution for cutting cost to become more competitive, more agile, more flexible, streamline processes, and create business value. Much more than just being someone else's computer or hardware. Today, it's much more service-oriented, much more application-centric as an infrastructure and as a service. And if you look at how modern network is designed and built today, it consists still a lot of on-prem equipment and services. I just came just an hour ago. I have the pleasure to look at this organization's on-prem data center, which was quite huge, of course, running a lot of services. So far, their usage of cloud is limited, but they are looking into it, for sure, to either to offload some of the services, being able to do some peak loads in the cloud, for instance, and so on. But the agility and flexibility that the clouds deliver could be delivered either as infrastructure as a service, where we do lift and shift, take our existing application and services as is, move it to the cloud. just for maybe for cutting cost or having avoid extra cost on scalability and so on. That's the infrastructure as a service. But on the other side, you for instance have Microsoft Office 365, which is offering Exchange online, on mail, OneDrive for private storage or personal files, or SharePoint Online as well for sharing files and creating common sites, web pages for the whole organization. So what we see today in most of the company, that you have a variety of different services consumed either as on-prem, delivered from the IT department and local resources, to public cloud services from the major players like Google, AWS, Amazon Web Services, or Microsoft Azure, for instance, which is the three main players, at least in the European or the Western world. In Asia, you have some Ali Cloud, for instance, and so on, but that's not that present in the Western world, so far at least. And this mix, you just don't choose one cloud vendor. Most of the organizations have several. They have multiple cloud vendors. And that's some of the challenge we run into. That could be due to the services they offer. For instance, Amazon, AWS, are offering 2,600 different services. The Microsoft, last number I heard, was around 150. Actually, Microsoft has consolidated a lot of their services into more common or more used terminology. That's the difference between what you see AWS and Microsoft, for instance. And as you know, Microsoft is setting up two Azure data centers in Norway as well, so which will take care of local storage, etc. And they have, I don't know, probably several hundred sites across the globe. So that's the challenge. But many think that, well, let's go to cloud, because then everything is secured. Then we don't have to handle the security. That's not the truth. The challenge is that as soon as we actually choose public cloud services, we actually expose our data, our infrastructure and services to the public. That's the beauty as well for being on the internet. You could access it wherever you are and consume it when you like, from any kind of devices, as long as you have internet connection. So one of the challenges we actually see, that's the misunderstanding about who is responsible for securing the data, securing the services. And all vendors of cloud services have a document called shared responsibility. It varies between what kind of services you have. For instance, on a SaaS service, the cloud provider provides almost all what you need on security. But if you go for infrastructure as a service, on the other side, there is very little the provider actually gives you on security. It's you as a customer and consumer of the cloud services that's responsible. So this is the shared model, and you could Google it. If you Google shared responsibility, space, Microsoft or Azure, you will find a document where they describe it. So it's important that if you are in charge of in your organization moving services to the cloud, to the public cloud, make sure you understand what your responsibility is. Because by default, there is very limited security by default. You could buy more or configure more security, either from the vendor itself or from company like Checkpoints, which is the leading vendor of advanced threat protection and has been that for several years. So what can go wrong? What do we actually see? Well, we see as soon as you are out on the internet, on the public internet with your service, there is an increased sophisticated and automated attacks, as it's stated. The threat becomes more and more advanced, and it propagates extremely fast, not just around the globe, but in your infrastructure as well, in your cloud environment, if you don't take care of it, and if you don't have the visibility needed, actually. So what we've actually heard most about is lack of account information, where your username and password has been hijacked, taken over from someone else, exposed on the internet. That's what we heard most about. We also heard a lot about ransomware, for instance, in different areas. We had a Norwegian organization just a couple of months ago, where estimated their cost between 350 and 400 million Norwegian crowns. That was the cost of that security breach. It was not cloud-oriented, but it could have been in the same if they did. So, what creates some of the vulnerability we face in the cloud is actually lack and inconsistent of tools for visibility. What have we configured? How have we set up our systems? Where are our services? Is it exposed to public or not, just for internal employee and such on? So, and especially when we move into multi-cloud environment, where we have different cloud vendors and maybe different on-prem services as well. Traditionally, design is not, and tools is not suitable to protect the cloud. One of the reasons is that normally in the cellar, as I call it, in our own data center on-prem, it's very static. We rarely moved services from one server to another, or from one site to another site. It's very static, so it stays the same for a long time of period. But in cloud, it changes all the time, because we can use serverless computing. We could do Lambda functions, for instance, and such on the cloud environment. And then we will dynamically move clouds. We will spin up servers instantly and terminate it. And if you need more resources, well, we automatically will spin up new servers, more compute power, etc. And at the same time, on-prem security is mainly handled by the security department, the firewall guys, more or less. But in cloud environment, you see that DevOps environment has to do it, because those guys, and girls of course, is some who will actually push for moving to the cloud. So what we need, and our recommendation, is that, well, look at the full stack of security, access, data, workload, and application. That's one thing, not just one single part of it. Make sure that we have ease of operation. As mentioned, it's not just the firewall guys anymore that is responsible and will actually deploy services in the cloud. It's, for instance, DevOps guys and such on. It has to be dynamically, because services and load are changing all the time. So we need to have automation in the cloud as well. We need to have fixed scripts for deploying services, and it needs to be understandable. And last but not least, make sure that you have one single pane of glass. Same management on security to AWS, to Azure, to Google, and to on-prem stuff, for instance. If not, you're completely lost, to be honest. The checkpoints offer a family of products to secure both SaaS, IaaS, and create visibility. I don't have time here to go into all the details, but you will get a copy of the presentation, of course. This is how it looks. I have to spend 30 seconds at least. Yeah, CloudGuard is the family name of the suite, which protects, as you can see on your left side, on-prem services, data center, both built on Cisco ACI, VMware NSX, or other OpenStack services, etc. It supports public EAS, all the main vendors, and software as a service. Office 365, as an example, protects your OneDrive storage. What does it do? It's a lot more than just a traditional firewall with access lists. It has the possibility to detect and prevent intrusions, anti-bots, antivirus, VPN stuff, data leakage protection, ransomware, anti-ransomware, and it's content aware, and does emulation of files, extracts malicious codes, etc. This is the stack, how it looks, together with Microsoft as an example. They do some, we do the rest of what you need. We are a preferred solution. This is the marketing slide at the end. You got it, a copy. For the technical guys, it's a hub and spoke, same architecture, same reference as Microsoft does. And security, cybersecurity, in the speed of DevOps. That's what you can go home and tell your manager, etc., if you ain't one yourself. With that, that's my contact information. You find me on LinkedIn if you like to hook up with me. Or drop me an email if needed. That's it.
Thank you, Nils Ove. And I guess questions can be asked at the stand.
Of course.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Our next platinum sponsor is Inspira.
Where do I find my presentation?
Oh. We get some help. Other way.
How do I, okay?
Yeah, Inspira is a digital assessment company, and it's Truls Bøen that will do his presentation. Varsågod.
Thank you, Freddy. I have a special slide for you later in the presentation, dedicated to you. So, Inspira is an assessment company. We have been doing assessment digital since 2008. I will talk a little bit about how digital assessments has been implemented in higher education in Scandinavia, and also I will talk a little bit about what we are seeing in the future, what direction this product has. Digital assessment is widespread. Our product, our technology is used now in nearly 100 countries around the world, but most of these countries we are doing standardized tests for K-12. So, this is not the slide that is dedicated to you, but digital assessment is kind of the missing link in higher education. Children are using laptops, tablets in kindergarten through school, and also in their studies and in the workplace after the study. But still, in many areas, the exam is pen and paper. There are many reasons to change from pen and paper. This is one of our clients, Cambridge, where they say that students' handwriting is now so bad that they have to switch to typed assignments. There are, of course, other reasons to switch. One of the reasons is, of course, that if you want to change education, you also have to change how you measure knowledge and the result of that education. So if you change assessment, it can also be an agent to change other ways of teaching and learning at the university. This is the slide I was thinking about. This is what was inside Freddy's head in 2014. I think he still tried to recover from that. But why I'm showing this slide is because this was a project that was kind of a collaboration between the academic sector and the industry. And it was a successful cooperation in my eyes. Because if you look around now in the Norwegian higher ed sector, I think every single institution is using some form of digital assessment. Also, what was useful is that we didn't just build our system by sitting in a cellar with some genius guys and think out how it should be. Actually, we got feedback from the sector. So that what we built is actually what the sector wanted. It's not what we thought that they wanted. We had to sort out a number of problems in the beginning. Privacy was one, data protection, GDPR compliancy. It's a lot about security, fairness, that there was preventing of cheating, reliability, that it has to work. You know, if 200 students have been studying the whole night, come to the exam in the morning, and the technology doesn't work, that's not acceptable. It has to work. It's also about integrations. We had to build a number of integrations. The first one, of course, against the common student administrative system in Norway. And we had to develop question types that could cater for the needs of the sector. It has been some kind of development, because in the beginning it was a lot about infrastructure. We had to get power supply into sports halls. The internet wasn't working, wasn't scaled for digital exams. There was a lot about administration. How do you administrate digital exams when we are used to paper exams? And a very tiny part in the beginning had to do with subject matters and how actually you're making good tests that really measures what they are supposed to do, the ability, the knowledge of the candidate. And over time it has changed. As you see, we are now in between 2018, 19 and 20. And most of the focus now in our development and also in the sector is more about how do we actually create good tests? How can we bring digital assessment to be more than just paper on screen? And how can we cater for all the subject matters that are at our university? We do see some sort of implementation pattern here, that the early adopters, the starters, are often doing open book exams, essay submissions, and MCQ as a multiple choice testing. Those who have come a bit further do double-blind marking, file submissions, and also some are starting to use programming of code, also in the more lightweight STEM applications. And the third phase, where most of the Norwegian universities are now, so the big ones like NTNU, where we are guests today, they use more advanced tools, complex STEM submissions. Also, we see that universities using now scanning for sketches. That, I think, is an interim solution. I think when we all can afford Microsoft Surf and iPad Pros, we can do the drawings on screen as well. These are some examples of good implementation. This, you see, the slide is divided in two. And on the one side, you can see the top-down implementations, like the University of Oslo, like the university here at NTNU, where it is the management who has said, we have to implement digital assessment. And there has been a long way. Most of us started this route 2013-14. And in the beginning, these institutions used bring your own device. We tried to cater for that. But when the volume did grow, both these institutions built their exam facility places. We can actually visit one of them today at NTNU at 4 o'clock. Both institutions have now reached about 75 to 80% of all assessment done digitally. There are some limitations. NTNU has said that there are some exams we can't do digitally yet. Technology is not there yet. But these are examples of top-down with investments. When you look at the voluntary gradual rollouts, the bottom-up rollouts on the other side of the slide, you see that it is a much slower approach. There are enthusiasts at faculty level who say we have to start this, and then it is voluntarily whether you want to do it or not. At some institutions, like the University of Gothenburg, we have seen that when one faculty starts, there is a pressure from the students to say, why can't we have the same possibility? Especially students who write a lot of text, because you're not used to write by hand anymore. You're used to start writing and then copy, paste and edit the text before you submit it. And you're not planning your submission like we did in the old days. We also see internationally that there is an offering that is taken up, but much more slow when it is a kind of voluntarily process. We had a university in Bronx, outside of New York. Because we have a modular product, so they said, we will start just scanning the handwritten submissions, and then we will grade them in the system. And that was kind of a slow start. And they even had a professor who thought, I don't like to grade on screen. So he printed it out again and took it to his cabin and was sitting by the fireplace with a red pen and a glass of whiskey and grading it, and gave it back to the administration when he was back at the university on Monday and said, you have to type this in for me. And then we haven't achieved anything. So, the short version, where do we go from here? What is kind of what we are working on? An assessment, it's not a finished product, not yet. And I think probably it will never be. It is under construction, it is a continuous process. We are discussing new ways of assessing, peer assessment. We are discussing about group assessment. We are discussing about formative assessment all through the year. All that has to be catered for in the platform, and we have to develop in that direction, and that's what we're actually working on. We're also looking into how do we construct good tests? How can you use data to construct good tests? It's a huge amount of data generated when you do a test online. A lot of that data can be used to improve test construction. It can be used also in combination with other data that are created in the school systems to look at dropout rates and other stuff. But test construction is important. This is something called LOFT, which is linear on-the-fly tests. And that has been used much for K-12, but it's also been used at the university level when you do entrance tests. For instance, SAT tests, also student admission test, where a lot of students need to do a test at the same time, and the LOFT construction makes it possible for people to do, a lot of people can do a test. The test has the same difficulty level. It is about the same subject, it covers the same spectrum of the curriculum, but it isn't the same test, it's different questions for each one of them. So you can't cheat, you can't look at the others. And it's also used, for instance, for chemistry. When you have a basic course in chemistry that's mandatory for both people who are interested in chemistry, got a chemistry set as a 5-year-old, and those who has to do it to get into other studies that they really want to study. And then they can take the exam on the fly. You see, you can go to the exam center, take the one that is very advanced in chemistry can take that test after 3 weeks, and those who are not really interested in just handling through can take the test even after the course is finished. The next level, of course, is adaptive testing, which is something we are working on, our R&D team, which makes it possible to, in a way, define the student's level of understanding much quicker and in a much more concrete and precise way. And it also makes it then possible, even because it's quicker, to cover a broader spectrum of the curriculum in one test. If you are interested in this, in psychometrics, item response theory, we have now a dedicated R&D team, kind of ring-fenced development resources that you can discuss these issues with. I have used my time. I will just say that if you're interested in assessment, please pay a visit to our stand outside the door here. Our project manager, product manager Lisa, is doing a presentation now in 5 minutes in room R9 about grading and marking of assessments. We have project managers doing live demos tomorrow in room R93. And there is a visit today to the exam factory. There's a picture of that on there. It can actually facilitate for 2,800 candidates a day, and they're doing about 125,000 assignments totally here planned for 2019. So it's a very interesting place to visit. There is a bus leaving outside here at 4 o'clock, takes you there and brings you back if you want. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Truls. Just there's limited seat.
Okay, there's only 45 seats.
Because it's still exams going on, so yeah.
So you will see a live exam done in a test center.
Okay, Truls, I have a EUNIS cup for you.
Thank you, sir. I hope I
thank you.
didn't offend you with the slide.
Yeah. Did Nils Ove, did you leave us? Okay, you will get your cup afterwards. Okay, thank you.